Gunfire tore through the underground parking lot before the engine could fully cool. The Mafia boss ducked instinctively, the sound of bullets ricocheting off concrete slicing the air behind him. His guards shouted, scrambling for cover, but the attack was too clean, too precise. Whoever planned this knew his route, knew his timing. "Get him out," someone yelled. Before anyone could grab him, she was already moving. The woman in the dark suit stepped in front of him, her hand gripping his wrist with a firmness that shocked him. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "Follow me. Now." They ran. Not blindly. Not panicked. She counted steps, turned corners before gunfire followed, shoved him against a pillar just as bullets shredded the space they'd occupied seconds earlier. He stared at her in disbelief. "How did you know?" "Left. Don't slow down." They burst through a security door and didn't stop until the noise faded into distance. When it was over, when sirens wailed somewhere far above them, the boss leaned against the wall, breathing hard, staring at the woman who had just saved his life like it was routine. "You didn't flinch," he said quietly. She straightened her jacket. "Fear wastes time." That was the moment he realized hiring her had changed everything. If you enjoy stories packed with danger, power, and impossible choices, subscribe now, like the video, and drop a comment because this story only gets darker from here. Hours earlier, before blood met concrete, the Mafia boss had stood alone in his penthouse, staring at his reflection with a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. Men feared him. Rivals whispered his name. Cities bent when he applied pressure. Yet women never stayed. Not after the rumors. They never said it to his face. They smiled politely, laughed too loud, found excuses. But the jokes always reached him. The whispers followed him into boardrooms and bedrooms alike. Too powerful to mock openly. Too pitiful to respect privately. It bled into business. Investors smirked. Partners underestimated him. Rivals laughed behind closed doors, convinced a man humiliated in private could be broken in public. That was when he decided perception mattered more than truth. He didn't need love. He needed credibility. That was why she was sitting across from him now in his office earlier that day, legs crossed, posture straight, eyes unreadable. "You want me to pretend to be your fiancée?" she said flatly. "Yes," he replied. "Public appearances, dinners, meetings, nothing complicated." She studied him for a long moment. "And in return? You'll be paid more than any assistant in this city." She didn't smile. "I don't work for affection." "Good," he said. "Neither do I." What he didn't know was that her acceptance had nothing to do with money alone. Because when she left his office that afternoon, she stepped into a black sedan and made a call. "It's confirmed," she said softly. "I'm in." A voice on the other end chuckled. "Good. Get close. Make him comfortable. And then you end him." She ended the call and stared out the window, jaw tightening. This job was supposed to be simple. One man. One kill. One payment big enough to erase every debt chained to her name. No emotions. No hesitation. But nothing had prepared her for how quickly the plan would change. The first public appearance was a charity gala crawling with predators pretending to be philanthropists. Cameras flashed the moment they entered together. His hand hovered awkwardly at her waist. She leaned in and whispered, "Relax. They can smell fear." He swallowed. "I don't fear anyone." "Tonight," she said, "you fear looking alone." She slid her arm through his, lifted her chin, smiled for the cameras. And just like that, the room shifted. Men who had mocked him hours earlier rushed forward with forced warmth. Investors shook his hand longer. Partners spoke with new respect. He watched it happen in real time and felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Relief. Later that night, as they rode home in silence, he finally spoke. "You play the role well." "I don't play," she replied. "I execute." He laughed softly. "You're different." She looked at him, then really looked at him. Not the power. Not the money. The man. "Don't confuse proximity with intimacy," she said. "That's how people die." He didn't realize how literal her warning was. The first trap came 3 days later, disguised as a romantic dinner. She noticed the waiter's hands shaking. The exits blocked too neatly. The wrong people sitting too close. "Stand up," she whispered urgently. "What?" "Now." The explosion rocked the restaurant seconds after they moved. Screams. Fire. Chaos. She shielded him with her body without thinking, dragged him through smoke, broke a man's wrist when he reached for a gun. When they escaped, his hands were trembling. Hers were steady. "You've done this before," he said quietly. She met his gaze. You don't survive the world I come from by being ordinary. Something shifted between them that night. He began trusting her more than his own men. And she began missing opportunities to end him. By the time the ambush in the parking lot happened, the line between assignment and attachment was already bleeding thin. As she watched him breathe beside her, alive because of her choices, she felt something dangerous stir. And for the first time since she accepted the contract, she wondered if killing him would be easier than walking away. The morning after the parking lot ambush, the city woke up buzzing with rumors. Some said the Mafia boss had been targeted by an old rival. Others claimed it was a warning shot, a reminder that power was never permanent. None of them knew how close he had come to dying. None of them knew the woman who now stood behind him in every photo was the same woman trained to end his life. She stood in the penthouse kitchen, sleeves rolled up, quietly scanning the room while the coffee brewed. Every window, every reflection, every shadow. He watched her from the doorway. "You didn't sleep," he said. She didn't turn. "Sleep is a habit, not a necessity. You bled last night. Superficial. You saved my life." She finally faced him. "I was hired to keep you functional. That's not the same thing." Her eyes hardened. "It is in my line of work." He nodded slowly, but something in her answer didn't sit right. She spoke like someone who had repeated that lie many times before. Later that day during a board meeting he noticed it again. Every time someone raised their voice at him, her posture shifted slightly. Every time a man leaned in too close, her gaze sharpened. When a rival laughed a second too long, her hand brushed his arm in a silent warning. After the meeting he closed the office door behind them. "You don't have to guard me like that," he said. "Yes, I do." "No," he corrected. "You choose to." She looked away. "Don't romanticize control." "I'm not," he said quietly. "I'm recognizing loyalty." That word made her chest tighten. Loyalty was expensive, dangerous. That night, as part of their arrangement, they attended a private dinner with international investors. Candlelight, expensive wine, carefully curated laughter. He leaned close and murmured, "You're enjoying this too much." She sipped her drink. "I'm good at my job." "You laugh differently here." "That's because these people believe the performance." "And me?" She paused. "You're harder to fool." That answer unsettled him more than any insult. As weeks passed, the fake engagement became routine. Interviews, red carpets, private flights, carefully staged affection. But danger followed them like a shadow. A sniper on a rooftop. A poisoned glass meant for him. A driver who took one wrong turn. Each time she intercepted death with frightening precision. "You're not reacting," he said one night after she disarmed a man twice her size. "You're anticipating." She wiped blood from her knuckles. "Experience teaches patterns." "What kind of experience teaches this?" She met his gaze. "The kind that doesn't forgive mistakes." He started waking up earlier just to hear her voice. Started delaying meetings so she would sit beside him longer. Started trusting her with things he had never said out loud. One evening, after a particularly brutal negotiation, he poured himself a drink and offered her one. "I don't drink on assignments," she said. "This isn't an assignment," he replied. She hesitated, then accepted. The silence stretched. "Why did you take this job?" he asked. "Money. That's not enough." She stared into the glass. "It is when money is the only thing standing between you and ruin." He nodded. "I know that feeling." She looked at him then, surprised. "You?" He laughed without humor. "Power doesn't protect you from being reduced to a joke." Her jaw tightened. "People underestimate you." "They mock me," he corrected. "And that mockery costs me leverage." She exhaled slowly. "Perception kills faster than bullets." The words slipped out before she could stop them. He smiled faintly. "You really have lived a violent life." She didn't deny it. That night, she dreamed of blood on white sheets and woke up angry at herself. Days later, the rival made contact again. "You're dragging your feet," the voice said over the burner phone. "He's protected," she replied. "I need time." "You've had time." "He trusts me." Rushing now would raise suspicion. Pause. Then colder. "Don't forget why you're doing this. Don't forget what you owe." The line went dead. She stared at the phone long after the screen went dark. The debt wasn't just financial. It was history. Mistakes. Promises broken to survive another day. She couldn't afford emotions. Yet they kept creeping in. The turning point came during a flight overseas. Turbulence rocked the jet violently. Lights flickered. Oxygen masks dropped. Panic erupted. She remained calm, unbuckled, moved straight to him. "Look at me," she said firmly. "Breathe." He grabbed her hand without thinking. When the plane stabilized, he didn't let go. Later, in the quiet of the private cabin, he said softly, "You're always there." She swallowed. "That's the role." "And if it wasn't?" Silence. She stood abruptly. "Get some rest." That night he couldn't sleep. Neither could she. Because for the first time since accepting the contract, she realized something terrifying. If the order came right now, she wasn't sure she could pull the trigger. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that the job was already slipping out of her control. The first night it happened, neither of them planned it. It started with paperwork. Stacks of documents spread across the long dining table, contracts tied to ports, weapons routes, shell companies. Midnight crept in unnoticed. The city outside the windows glowed quietly, unaware of the tension tightening inside the penthouse. She stood beside him, pointing at a signature line. "You missed this clause." He leaned closer, squinting. "This one?" "Yes." Their shoulders brushed. It was brief, accidental. But neither moved away immediately. He cleared his throat. "You're thorough. It keeps people alive." He sighed. "You always talk like death is an appointment." She didn't answer. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the scratch of pen against paper. Then he pushed the last file aside and leaned back. "Do you ever stop?" he asked. She looked up. "Stop what?" "Being on guard." She considered the question, then shook her head. "No. That sounds exhausting." "It's safer." He studied her face, the faint scar near her jaw she never explained, the eyes that had seen too much and refused to flinch. "You don't trust anyone," he said. "I trust outcomes." "And me?" She hesitated just long enough for him to notice. "I trust you not to lie to me," she said finally. It wasn't reassurance. It was a boundary. He nodded, strangely grateful. She gathered the documents and turned toward the hallway. "I'll leave these with legal." He watched her walk away, aware of something heavy settling in his chest. That night, he dreamed of standing alone in a room full of people laughing softly, their faces blurred, their mouths moving without sound. He woke before dawn, heart racing, her name on his tongue. Days passed. Then weeks. The attacks didn't stop. They evolved. A guard poisoned. A bomb dismantled seconds before detonation. A sniper neutralized before the scope aligned. Each time she was there first. "You knew again," he said after she dragged him into a safe room during another attempt. "I always know," she replied. "That's impossible." She met his gaze. "So is surviving this long." The more danger closed in, the more he pulled her closer. Not physically. Emotionally. One night, after a brutal confrontation with a rival faction, he sat in his office staring at nothing. "They laugh at me," he said suddenly. She paused in the doorway. "Who?" "Everyone who hears the rumors," he said bitterly. "They think I'm less of a man." She stepped inside slowly. "Rumors don't define you. They do in my world." She crossed her arms. "Power isn't measured by gossip." He scoffed. "Tell that to the women who walk away before they even try." Her eyes softened just a fraction. "Fear makes people cruel. So does disappointment." Silence stretched. "You deserve more than whispers," she said quietly. The words hit him harder than any insult ever had. Later that night, she stood alone in her room, staring at her reflection. The mission clock was ticking louder now. The rival was growing impatient. The payment was waiting. Freedom was close. So why did the thought of leaving him hollow her chest? The answer came days later, wrapped in exhaustion. They had returned from another high-risk meeting overseas. Jet lag, adrenaline, tension still humming. She knocked on his bedroom door. "I need your signature," she said when he opened it, shirt unbuttoned, hair damp from a shower. "Now?" he asked. "Yes." He stepped aside without thinking. She entered, eyes scanning out of habit, then froze. The bathroom door was open. Steam curled into the room. The sound of running water echoed softly. He noticed her pause. "I can dry off." "No," she said too quickly. "It's fine." She moved toward the bathroom with the documents, her pulse steady, her instincts alert. She had walked into worse rooms. Faced worse men. She didn't expect him to be there, towel hanging low, water tracing over skin marked by old scars. Their eyes met. Time fractured. Neither spoke. Neither moved. She took one step back. He closed the distance instead. "I trust you," he said softly. "More than anyone." That was the mistake. The line shattered. What happened next wasn't gentle. It wasn't planned. It was collision, gravity, two people who had been circling something inevitable and finally lost the strength to stop. After, silence pressed in heavy and undeniable. She dressed without looking at him. "This changes nothing," she said, voice tight. He sat on the edge of the bed, stunned. "It changes everything." She turned. "No. It complicates the mission." "Is that what I am to you?" he asked. "A mission." She didn't answer. That was answer enough. From that night on, they avoided each other in private. In public they were flawless. Hands held. Smiles practiced. Chemistry undeniable. But behind closed doors, tension simmered dangerously. He wanted to talk. She refused. He wanted clarity. She built walls. Midway through the story, if you're feeling this tension tighten, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment what you think she'll choose in the end. Love or money? Because the story is about to turn. The rival called again. "This ends soon," the voice said. "I'm done waiting." She closed her eyes. "I'll finish it." "You better. Or your debts become permanent." The line went dead. She stared at the city lights, breathing slowly. Finish it. But every time she pictured pulling the trigger, she saw his face in the quiet moments. The way he looked at her like she was real, not a weapon. And she knew then, with a cold certainty, that whatever happened next would destroy something that could never be rebuilt. From that point on, danger stopped knocking and started kicking doors down. The rival stopped being subtle. Cars followed them openly now. Meetings were compromised before they even began. One of the boss's warehouses went up in flames at dawn, smoke painting the sky like a warning. She watched it burn from the balcony, jaw tight. "They're getting closer," he said behind her. "They're impatient." "So are you," he replied. She turned. "Don't mistake urgency for weakness." "I'm not," he said quietly. "I'm watching you disappear." That cut deeper than he knew. She began sleeping less, training more. Running drills alone in empty rooms. Checking weapons she swore she wouldn't need. He noticed everything. "You're preparing for something," he said one night as she strapped a knife to her ankle. "I always am. This feels different." She didn't look up. Everything feels different when you're paying attention. The tension between them became unbearable. Words piled up unsaid. Looks lingered too long. Silence screamed. During a high-level meeting with international partners, the boss lost focus for the first time in years. "Are you listening?" one investor snapped. Before he could respond, she spoke. "He is," she said coolly. "And if you value this partnership, you'll watch your tone." The room went still. Afterward, he pulled her aside. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." "Why?" She hesitated. "Because disrespect invites chaos." He studied her. "Or because you care." Her eyes flashed. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make this about feelings." He stepped closer. "You already did." She turned away, breathing hard. That night, she received the final message. A location. A time. A warning. "Do it tomorrow. Or we do it for you." She sat on the edge of her bed, phone heavy in her hand. Tomorrow was the biggest deal of his career. A summit that would cement his power permanently. Every rival would be watching. Every ally present. The perfect place to end him. She could take the shot. Walk away rich. Free. Or she could burn everything down. The morning of the event, she stood in the mirror, staring at herself like she was a stranger. "You don't get happy endings," she whispered. "You get exits." At the venue, tension crackled through the air. Armed guards. Security sweeps. Controlled smiles. He adjusted his cufflinks nervously. "You okay?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "But I trust you." Those words landed like a curse. The attack came during his speech. A sudden blackout. Screams. The sound of gunfire echoing through marble halls. She moved instantly. "Down!" she shouted, shoving him aside as bullets tore through the podium. She fired back without hesitation, taking down threats with lethal precision. Guards scrambled. People ran. In the chaos, she saw the sniper's position. She could take him out. She did. And in doing so, she crossed the final line. When it was over, when the smoke cleared and sirens wailed, he stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You knew," he said slowly. "You knew this would happen." "Yes." "You knew someone wanted me dead." "Yes." "And you stayed." Her voice broke. "Yes." They didn't speak again until hours later, alone in the penthouse, adrenaline replaced by truth. "You're not just my assistant," he said. "You're not just my fiancée." She swallowed. "I was sent to kill you." The words hung between them, poisonous and inevitable. He laughed once, sharp and hollow. Of course you were. I didn't plan to fall in love, she said. That was the mistake. He looked at her, eyes dark with hurt. Was it real? Yes. And the money? She closed her eyes. Also real. Silence stretched. So what happens now? He asked. She picked up her bag. Now, she said softly, I choose. At the door she paused. I didn't kill you, she said. That has to mean something. He didn't answer. The elevator doors closed. At the very end, if this story held you, if you felt the tension, the betrayal, the love that couldn't survive its own truth, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Tell us, did she make the right choice? Because some loves don't end with death. They end with walking away. The penthouse felt too large without her. He stood where the elevator doors had closed, staring at his own reflection in the polished metal long after it had disappeared. His guards hovered at a distance, unsure whether to speak or pretend nothing had happened. He dismissed them with a wave. When he was finally alone, the silence became unbearable. He poured a drink he didn't touch and sat on the edge of the couch where she used to sit during late-night briefings. The imprint of her presence lingered in small, cruel ways. A forgotten file. A pen she always used. The faint scent of her perfume trapped in the air like a memory refusing to leave. She had chosen. And somehow that hurt more than betrayal. Across the city she sat in the back of a black sedan, hands clasped tightly in her lap. The money had already been transferred. Enough to erase her debts, enough to disappear forever. Freedom had a weight she hadn't expected. Airport in 30 minutes, the driver said. She nodded, eyes fixed on the window as the city blurred past. Every street corner reminded her of him. Every reflection felt accusatory. She replayed the moment she'd turned away from him over and over. His silence. His refusal to beg. The dignity in his pain. That was what broke her. If he had shouted, pleaded, threatened, it would have been easier. But he hadn't. He had let her go. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She stared at it for several seconds before answering. You're late, the voice said. I was beginning to think you'd grown sentimental. It's done, she replied flatly. You didn't kill him. No. Pause. Then a low chuckle. You think that matters? He's alive but broken. Reputation in ruins. Trust shattered. In our world, that's a slower death. Her jaw tightened. You said the contract was complete. It is. Enjoy your freedom. The call ended. She closed her eyes, nausea rising. Back at the penthouse, the Mafia boss finally moved. He stood, walked to his office, and opened the drawer she had never known about. Inside lay old photographs. Faces of people he had lost. Men he had buried. Women who had left. He added one more image to the collection. Her. Not a photograph. Just her name, written once on a blank sheet of paper. He crumpled it, then smoothed it out again. Idiot, he muttered to himself. Days passed. The summit fallout was brutal. Investors withdrew. Allies questioned his judgment. Rivals grew bolder, sensing blood in the water. You're compromised, one partner said bluntly during a meeting. You trusted the wrong person. He leaned back in his chair. I trusted the right person too late. That answer only deepened their concern. Meanwhile, she landed in a country that didn't know her name. No history. No enemies. No expectations. She rented a small apartment overlooking a quiet street. No guards. No weapons. No alarms. For the first time in years she slept. And for the first time she dreamed of something other than violence. She dreamed of him. The way he listened when she spoke. The way his voice softened when it was just the two of them. The way he looked at her like she was more than a solution. She woke with tears on her face and no one to hide them from. Weeks later, news reached her through an international broadcast playing in a cafe. The Mafia boss had survived another assassination attempt. This one had been sloppy. Desperate. She knew immediately what it meant. Her absence had destabilized everything. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. She didn't answer this time. Back in the city, he stood over the body of the man who had tried and failed to kill him. Who sent you? He asked calmly. The man spat blood and laughed. You already know. He did. The rival thought she was gone. Thought he was alone. They were wrong. He straightened, issuing orders with the same cold authority that had once built his empire. But something had changed. He no longer ruled from arrogance. He ruled from loss. Late that night he stood on the balcony, city lights flickering below. For a moment he imagined her standing beside him again, arms crossed, eyes scanning the dark. "You saved me," he said to the empty air. "And then you destroyed me." He didn't know which hurt more. Thousands of miles away, she stood on her own balcony, staring at a sky unfamiliar yet peaceful. "I didn't kill you," she whispered. "But I don't know if that makes me strong, or a coward." The wind carried her words away. Neither of them knew it yet, but their story wasn't finished haunting them. Because love, once awakened, does not disappear quietly. It waits. Months passed, but the city never forgot. The Mafia boss's name still commanded fear, but whispers of vulnerability lingered like shadows, soft yet persistent. Allies questioned loyalty. Rivals pressed harder. Every boardroom, every deal carried the echo of her absence. He moved through it all with calculated precision, yet inside there was a hollow he could not fill. His empire remained intact, but the emptiness was louder than any applause or respect. At night, he found himself staring at the penthouse balcony, imagining her there, eyes scanning the city, poised and fearless as she had always been. Meanwhile, she built a quiet life in a distant city. Freedom tasted bitter with the weight of what she had left behind. The money she had taken was enough to erase decades of debt, enough to vanish completely. But the memories of him, the warmth, the moments of unexpected softness, were impossible to escape. One night, she found herself wandering to the balcony, staring at lights she didn't recognize, feeling the same pulse of longing she had tried to bury. The thought of him, alive, powerful, unbroken, and perhaps still thinking of her, twisted her chest in ways she didn't anticipate. Back home, he sat alone in his office, a drink untouched at his side. The reports of attacks, the news of rival movements, the endless chess game of his empire, all of it was secondary to a single thought: her. Every instinct screamed that she was still out there, that their paths might cross again. And every rational thought warned that it could never happen. He picked up a pen and wrote her name on a blank sheet of paper. He crumpled it, then smoothed it, then folded it carefully, tucking it into the drawer with a quiet sigh. He knew she was free. He knew she had chosen survival over loyalty. He knew she had chosen money over love, and yet the truth burned hotter than any betrayal. He could not stop thinking about her. Thousands of miles away, she touched the edge of a worn photograph in her pocket. It wasn't a picture of him, it had never been. But it was enough to remind her. Enough to haunt her. Enough to make her question whether she had truly escaped or merely postponed the inevitable. The world moved on. Deals were signed. Rivals were neutralized. The Mafia boss maintained control of the empire, stronger, colder, yet haunted by the shadow of what he had lost. She moved through the quiet streets of her new life, every heartbeat a reminder of the choice she had made. And somewhere in the city that had once been their battlefield, he stood at the balcony at dawn, staring at the horizon. He whispered, almost to himself, almost a prayer, almost a curse. "She didn't kill me. But she left me with something far more permanent." The wind carried the words away, but they lingered in the emptiness of his chest, echoing long after the city awoke. Somewhere, she might have heard them in her own quiet night, but she did nothing. She didn't respond. She didn't return. She only lived, and in that living she carried him with her, like a scar she could neither remove nor hide. The empire remained. The streets whispered. Power shifted subtly, loyalties wavered, but love, the love they had almost dared to claim, remained untouchable. Impossible to forget. Dangerous to hope for. And that is where the story ends. Not with death. Not with closure. Not with revenge. It ends with two people forever changed, bound by the choices they made, by the danger they survived, and by a love that neither could fully claim. If this story gripped you, left your heart racing, and made you question what you would do in their place, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. Tell us what you think she should have chosen, love or freedom. Because sometimes, the hardest choices are the ones that leave the deepest scars.